Good Saturday morning. We are here at the Think and Grow Rich MasterMind live Saturday morning, up and early, ready to talk about something that is dear to my heart, which is a book, Think and Grow Rich, with my cohorts as we're going to explore today something just extraordinary. Chapter 13, The Brain, specifically a broadcasting and receiving station of thought. You know, when we talk about the brain being a receiving thought and also a promotional process, right, where we can receive it and we can broadcast, it's quite extraordinary. I choose to live in a place that has 3 towers, as you've heard me speak in the past. And the reason for that is a constant reminder that what I think, what I do communicates who I am. And if I want to change and transform, then you know what? I have to change what I'm thinking. And I don't do this alone. Every week, I'm surrounded with the most wonderful, amazing people. And I'm going to bring them on in a few minutes. Today, we also had a surprise, wonderful guest named Shawnte Wells. She's the owner and operator of Abundant Health Services and the founder of Books in the Hood. And for those of you who have ever been online and have ever had some technological troubles, technology interrupting your plans, well, that happened this morning. So Shawnte is going to come back next week, but she is here watching and she is in the chat. So she is going to share her insights and wisdom and clarity and questions and answers. So she's here in the chat, but not here live. So she's going to be coming back because she is a diamond. And we really, really want to be surrounded by people who are diamonds and magnificent and can give us wisdom. So look forward to seeing you, Shawnte, very shortly. Well, let me share some of my other magnificent jewels and bring them on so that they can talk about their perspective of the brain. You know, for me, the brain the greatest forces are intangible. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Perhaps we shall learn as we pass through this age that the other self is more powerful than the physical self we see when we look into the mirror." Well, this is a live mastermind. And I know that when I connect with these people, my other self is more powerful. So let me first bring in Galen. Galen Bingham, my buddy, my bro, my brother, my mastermind, my push. Man, you push and prod and provoke me to take some actions, my accountability partner. So Galen, good morning.
Good
How are you?
morning. Good morning. This is going to be an incredible conversation. And I love this topic for a couple of reasons. Number one, we know so little about the brain. We know so little, even in the days of Napoleon Hill, he talks about that in this chapter, how, so much of our time and effort has been spent on the physical things that we can physically see and sense with our 5 senses. But there is so much out there that we don't know. And the more we can understand, the more we can explain how to use the brain as opposed to trying to understand how it works, I think the more powerful we tend to be. So I'm excited about this conversation. My name is Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Let's get into this. Let's go.
We are going to get into this. You know, one of the other things that I love about what he wrote, so he wrote about the greatest forces intangible. He wrote the Depression of the 1930s brought the world to the very borderline of understanding intangible and unseen forces. And I would say that we all have experienced in the last 2 years some unforeseen forces, some intangible forces. And for those of us that understood Think and Grow Rich, that understand the power of our thought, how we maneuvered through this experience was different than others who didn't take advantage of the intangible force. And there's nobody better to be with us today than this woman that I'm going to bring on right now, who definitely is tapped in, tuned in, and turned on by the intangible forces. Our dear esteemed leader and friend, Ann McNeil. Hello.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yes, Ann McNeil, the master builder, helping to build stronger, better lives and businesses. And I am very excited to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is the brain and this idea of it being an intangible force. And Begin, I'd like to even pick up where you stopped in the reading of what he said when you talked about it being intangible forces and how we are just coming into um, contact really with it. Napoleon Hill goes on to say that men speak lightly of the intangibles, the things which we cannot perceive through the five senses. And I love reading Emerson also, in addition to Napoleon Hill. And during the show, I'd like to share some of the thoughts he had in regards to the soul. And he wrote an essay called The Oversoul. Now, these are still intangible forces. So when you start talking about the brain, what is it really to you? You know, Dr. Mia Merritt gave us some insights, and Ron Williams gave us some insights. But you also have insight that's an intangible force. And actually, uh, he goes on, Emerson says that the soul is the perceiver and the revealer of truth. Now we're talking about the brain being an intangible force. And as we get into this subject, and you, as you're listening to us, we'd like for you to pull out your book if you have the book. And if you don't have the book, you can just go to Google and you can Google, Think and Grow Rich, the brain. And we'd love to have you follow with us. And today we'd like to have you to engage with us in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or whether you are on YouTube. Let us hear from you. Share with us your questions and your comments about this conversation. And if you choose, you can be a contrarian. You can disagree with everything we're saying, but let's have that conversation. And as we go on and get this, I like to call it get this party started, remember that man has not the capacity to even begin to understand the intangible forces of gravity. And so when you think about that, how can then we begin to understand these intangible forces of the brain? But we can make the best effort possible. All right.
I'm like, let's get this party started. Let's get the party. And here's what I want to tell those of you who are watching. You are part of our mastermind too. So I'm just calling all masterminders to be part of this. And I want you to answer this question in the comments. So here's the question that I'd love to ask is, are you willing to be a participant of this mastermind today? If you are willing to be a participant of this mastermind, not just sit back, hey, let me watch, but you really want to participate and get your brain connected to us, and let's use this energy system called the internet to really motivate, inspire, and get us some wisdom. Just write yes, yes, yes. Yes, 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 I am ready to play. And we're watching you. So don't be quiet over here. If you want to tap into what we have, you really want to write yes, yes, yes. So here's the other thing that I wanted to share. I love that he says, by applying the principle used in connection with the invisible counselors described in the next chapter, we can begin the process of blending our three minds and now our 150 minds for everybody watching, right, into one, and find the solution to a great variety of personal problems submitted by his clients. So let's talk about that. I mean, we all act like we know what we're talking about. We all act like we're there. I really would like us to use the mastermind to help us with any maybe not problems, but strategies that we're trying to figure out. And may I say that, so for myself, I've had to be vulnerable this week as I've worked with one of my coaches to say, this is kind of to say, how do I write my bio so that it reflects who I am today and tomorrow and doesn't reflect who I was when I was 17? Because I've been there, done that, passed on. And she gave me some really strong critiques that changed how I'm promoting myself, how my LinkedIn looks in. By the way, you can all go to LinkedIn, linkedin.in.pegine, Pegine, and you can see the changes. I had to trust the brain and my soul and the connection to be able to hear. Has that ever happened to you, Galen or Ann, where you've had to I mean, Anne's given me some coaching, so I just know that. But Galen, how about you? You're being vulnerable to receive.
Oh, I mean, I can talk about a conversation that you and I had last week that was kind of a one-on-one conversation, right?
Mhm.
I was telling you about some things going on with my family with my daughter who's in her first year at school, and I knew what to do. I knew what the right thing to do, but in that moment, I needed to talk to someone to talk me off the ledge because this was not a situation where I could operate in my intellectual brain. This was emotional for me because it was my family, and that's when you have to be vulnerable. I think if I had just tried to stay intellectual when I talked with you, you wouldn't have been able to support me. So that's when we had to literally, I had to come out from behind my professional self and say, look, Pagine, this is what's going on. This is what I'm ready to do. And the joke is, with my daughter, I was already at DEFCON 5. I had punched in the code and was ready to push the button. But it wasn't the right thing to do. And I needed someone to talk me back into what's the right way to approach it. And so that's when the blending of brains, to having a mastermind, to having people around you who can help you think through things more clearly, that really does help. And again, you didn't tell me anything that I didn't already know was right. I
Right.
just needed to have that conversation so that I could get out of that emotional state that I was in. So I think you're
I
absolutely right.
so get that, and I want to just acknowledge Doretha and everybody that's writing their little comments. Well, not little; these are big comments. Doretha's there. Regina's saying yes. Abundant Health Services, you are here. Awesome, love it. Angelina Buckley. Regina, who else is here? Katrina, thank you so much for being here. Now, I got to tell you, Galen, all right, we just got to put our minds together because something happened this past week, and Anne has been in my mind bigly, as they say, hugely. And I'm going to say this: those of you that know Anne, not only is she the master builder of your mind, but she's truly a master builder of construction. And I was thinking about you, Anne, tremendously because how you have invested in your mastermind in construction and transportation services. And I wanted to bring you in to talk about this because now this huge infrastructure bill has passed that everybody acts like, oh, this is just happening. Oh, well, let me just be aware. I know that this woman has been building her mastermind in that area for years and years and years. But now we need to support her in thinking big and large and abundant so that all the women in Black construction, all the people that are attached to you can be part of this big picture. So I'm just curious for you, Anne, this week, how have you been using Mastermind to allow yourself to receive the blessings, the opportunities, and the growth that's available?
Well, first, let me before we go to those 13 steps, let me just ask the question: what difference does another $1 billion make? What difference does $1 trillion make if you don't have a funnel in which to receive it? You see, I think it may have been Earl Nightingale that said, you know, success versus money. Oftentimes people want money and they think that because you have money, you're successful. And because you are a success, you have money. And one of the things that I'm learning, Pekin and Galen and everybody who's listening, is that none of it makes absolutely any difference if you don't have a desire. And so everything that I do comes back to these principles. And it actually comes back to the word, that other word, for those of you that know the other word, it comes back to the word. And the word basically says that he will give you the desire of your heart. And so many years ago, I was blessed with an idea that actually came from this book. And we know of the story when Carnegie was convinced, by Charles Schwab to create what we now know as United States Steel Corporation. Well, as I read that many years ago, I was, you know, I was impacted, if you will, by the story of the $1 billion luncheon, excuse me, the $1 billion dinner speech that Charles
Mhm.
Schwab gave. And that $1 billion dinner speech convinced the wealthiest men of the day to finance and pull together and come together in the form of a mastermind. And that mastermind controlled the world, if you will, when it came to manufacturing and marketing steel. But what was interesting about the story in this book is that Carnegie admitted he knew absolutely nothing about the marketing and the and making and the manufacturing of steel, but he was a billionaire. Now I'm answering your question, Pekin, to say this. When I read that story and began to use what's called intentional congruence to be able to match what I've heard with what I do in my desire to make more money, I came up with the idea from that story to do a $1 billion luncheon. I had the idea 4 or 5 years ago, and I started locally hosting a $1 billion luncheon face to face at a local restaurant in Miami for our National Association of Black Women in Construction. And we're talking about the power of the brain. That's what this discussion is about. Because if you're able, like Napoleon Hill says, to use your entire mastermind alliance and mastermind ideas to create a larger vision, not just for yourself, but for others. This is the power of your brain being a receiving and a broadcasting station for thought, your
Mhm.
thoughts. And so, Pekin, this infrastructure bill, you know, people are talking about it, but for me, we don't run after the money. We get ahead of the money and we stand in the way. That's what we do. That's what we've done. And prior to this bill being signed, our organization, the National Association of Black Women in Construction, which is a mastermind group from my mind, again, right? We have gone to we've gone to Tallahassee, we've gone to Washington D.C., and many other of our members have visited the governor's office to get ahead of this money. And so when you talk about this phenomenal activity that happened, it really happened years ago by
Right.
creating, yes, by creating relationships with the powers to be. So those are just my thoughts as it relates to this infrastructure bill. But again, I want to end with the way I started. What's another $1 billion? Galen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, because my grandmama told me never to interrupt, but you've got to say that again, that you don't go after the money. You go ahead of the money
Of
and then
course.
get in the way.
Of
Oh my
course.
gosh, that is just so, oh my Lord, that's going to stick with me. That's going to stick with me for a long, long time.
Absolutely, Galen. And this is one of, again, I don't know if you have your hand up too.
Oh, you just keep on talking, and then I'm just gonna jump in. I'm not gonna be as polite as Galen. I'm
Okay,
just gonna jump
okay.
in.
Well, I want to go back to desire. This chapter is starting to wrap us up for the 13 principles, and we are going to go to the 13 principles in the video. But when you think about money, money is also one of those intangible forces. Now, we're not going to get into this on this show. We'll have to do another show, maybe in 2022, 23, or maybe even 24 about Bitcoins and all of that, right? But when you think about money, it's an intangible force. You see, before there was gold, there they still, traded. And then there was gold, and there's paper. Now there are all these other types of money. But you see, the real money, Galen, and for all of us, is here in the brain. What do we view as valuable to us? It can be the time, but when you talk about contracts and you talk about construction and what we do for a living as contractors, oftentimes we hear people talk about, oh, I'm running after the money. No, I had a mindset shift in this philosophy years ago. And I realized that when you learn how to earn, and then you learn how to make sure that your money is working harder for you than you're working for the money. It's the power of thought that is really where the money lies and the value. And so as I began to think about how to do my business better, and again, Alan Weiss talks about adding more value with less time. How do you make more, charge more, but then you exert less energy? That is really the power of getting ahead of the money in your thought. And so we actually, as an organization, National Association for Black Women in Construction, we physically get ahead of the money by standing in between the lobbyists and the politicians and the billions of dollars. That's how we get ahead of the money, and then we stand in the way.
So I just want to bring this back a little bit because, one of the things that you did, and I want everybody to just be aware of something. While Ann's talking about the strategy of the women in construction, she chose to have a luncheon, literally in a restaurant, called the billion dollar meeting.
Luncheon. Right.
The $1 billion. So it was, she could have said it's the $1,000, it's the $1 million. So this was something, and came into her mind, came down into it and said, no, you're not calling it million, you're calling it billion. And for her, it was sort of like, all right, I don't know what, and then promoting it that way made the world know I'm thinking billions. I'm not thinking millions. And I'm not doing this alone. I'm bringing in anybody else that chooses to show up at this meeting and this meeting to say, I'm going to play that game too. It wasn't a closed off meeting. It wasn't a you can't come meeting. It was none of that. It was call if you want to play in the $1 billion world, and just even play with the thought. I don't have the $1 billion. I don't know where that, but I know that if I put it out there, it will show up.
And it will attract. And it will attract. Let's talk about the brain.
Absolutely, it'll attract. But before we do that, let's talk about the 13 principles. Because we've attracted a great producer that keeps on writing, where's the 13 principles? So I'm not going to even go back to you, Ann, because we're going to get into this. So everybody, let's just watch the 13 principles, because that's how you attract what you want. Go for it.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
You caught me drinking water. Yay! So here's the thing that I want to just let you all know. You are hearing a lot about masterminds and you're seeing us in action. Some of you are getting some insights and wisdom. Actually, in the chat, if you would write one thing that you've already gained from this discussion, that'd be great. Just one thing. Number 2 is what I would ask you is please share this on your post. Share what you're experiencing. And then 3, subscribe so you get notified at every single time we're going live. So first, share what you've learned. 2nd, share it. And 3, subscribe. It would be so great. One of the things that we've just been sharing is about the power of mastermind. And Anne has created something called the Beta, about the International Masterminders Association, which is for all of you who choose to create, be in, or lead masterminds. How do you do it well? How do you ensure that you can deal with people who fit and people who don't? How do you deal with that? How do you ensure that there's longevity in the mastermind? And Anne, would you share a little bit about what this Beta is so that people know how to reach out to you and be part of this?
Absolutely, Pekin. Thank you for that question. And I like to call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yes, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in the sense that this is a beta test group hosted by the International Masterminders Association. And you can go to the website and register with us and you will get the information. All you have to do is go to internationalmasterminders.com, and that's masterminders with an S.com /group mastermind. We're hosting a beta test group for mastermind groups. And basically what we do, we come together once a month, and this is going to be the second Tuesday at 9 a.m. in December. So if somebody can give me that date real quick. We just had this one this Tuesday past. And simply, we're coming together talking about best practices. What are some of the best practices for a mastermind group? Some of us have paid masterminds, but what I'm finding is very interesting is that the majority of the people who host mastermind groups enjoy their free mastermind groups where they are held accountable for the achievement of their goals. But what we're doing here is a little different in that we're masterminding in every area of your life. You see, it's not just about the money, it is about every area of your life, your family, your health, your business. How about recreation, creativity, civic, all of these other areas of your life that really give you an equal or greater value than the money? So if you'd like to join us, register with us. It's free for now at internationalmasterminders.com/group mastermind. All right.
Thank you. And I want to also acknowledge Angelina Buckley. Girl, boo, you shared your aha. I learned to go ahead of the money and not after. I also want to acknowledge one of our other great, Doretha Dennis. Thank you so much for always posting and sharing and connecting. It's a way that we know. So thank you so much. And I want to go to Galen for a minute. So, Galen, if in this experience, I'm going to read what it says, and I want you to just share about yourself. It says this method of mind stimulation through harmonious discussion of definite subjects between three people illustrates the simplest and most practical use of mastermind. Now, I know that you run a mastermind. I know that you are in a mastermind. Can you share how your brain gets stimulated before, during, and after?
Yeah, I mean, back to what Ann was saying. It's always interesting how you have a different energy when you come to a mastermind where you are being held accountable. And so I've got a group of people that I meet with, a group of coaches that I meet with, and we talk on a weekly basis. And we're really kind of focused on this area of knowing. And I think that this fits in very nicely with this topic of the brain. Jay-Z said in an interview, he said that we should all be in pursuit of being in a space of knowing. And that when he gets in the studio, when he gets on the stage, he's not thinking, he's not hoping, he knows. And so my question to everyone is, what's something that you know and you can't fully explain how you know it? Because that's the space that we need to be operating in. So many times in adult learning, adults want to know, well, how does this work? Right? Before I play, I need to know what are the rules and how does this work and what is this going to do and what's the next steps. And what Jay-Z is saying, and I think what Napoleon Hill is saying specifically in the brain chapter is there are some things that we just know. We can't explain how we know it. We just know it. And that's what we should be acting on. And so back to your question, Begin, I tend to seek out those experiences, those relationships where they encourage me to act on what I know. Don't necessarily explain how you know it, but hold me accountable for doing those things and acting on those activities that this outside force is telling me this is what you need to be doing. So let me just pose that to everyone. I'm going to post that actually to everyone. What's something that you know and you can't fully explain how you know it? And do you have the courage to act against that?
I had to jump in because I just have to jump in for a minute because one of the things that I have embraced just of this knowing. So, and you're right, physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, fiscal. I've always looked at this for 30 plus years. But one of the things that I have come to know, and it's really, I've known sort of it, but now I know it, right? So I know sort of it, but now I know it. And here's what I now know, and I am luxuriating in this bliss. And I want to share with everybody else. I know that I am deeply loved by Source. I know without a doubt that I was a miracle when I was born. I mean, somehow I made it through that canal and came out of an 8-inch hole, and I am here now. I don't, that was a miracle in itself. I know for sure that I have been blessed with such incredible, look, I'm with the two of you. What a blessing. What a gift this is. So I know, of course, I'm loved. If I love my children the way I love my children, and I loved my mom the way I loved my mom, I know without any shadow of a doubt that I am deeply loved and the path is open for me and that I am here. I know you was talking about the speech. I know I do leadership speaking a lot, but I know that I can have my plan. I can have it written out every time before I go in stage. I find a corner and I say, use me for the magnificence you want in this world. I am willing to surrender myself so that you can use me for the magnificence you want to communicate in this world. I'll play at the highest level if that's where you need me to go, but just take over. It's like our guest speaker today. I am so grateful for her that she said, yeah, I'm okay with this. When Shawnte said, we said, Shawnte Wells, thank you so much. When she, it just wasn't working out. I know that the universe was loving her so much and loving us so much that we can have a show that's going to be created around her at a highest level and to make her be that most magnificent self. So thank you for allowing that. I know there are fishes. I don't see fishes in the ocean, but I know they're there. I know that there are whales in the ocean. I don't see them, but I know that they're there. I know that there are diamonds and emeralds and sapphires and rubies. I know that. I don't see them. I'm in Boston, and there's a lot of history here, but there's a highlighting history of for instance, the Black community in Boston, which had to deal with some stuff. But here's the horrible stuff, actually. But here's the thing: is when you read the stories of some of the individuals who knew speak up, who knew share, who knew to show up and demand and declare and be, that came from knowing that I am deeply loved. I am a magnificent human being. I am a blessing to this earth. I am willing to lift up and be who I know I'm supposed to be. There is no coincidence that Anne is here and Galen is here and every single other person. Anyway, all I know is that I know that the universe, source, the brain, the connection to soul is driving every single one of us who are here right now to do magnificent work and to be blessed deeply, deeply with all that we want, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, physically. And, I just think it's really important. And Galen, you know about the annual meeting. So can you just share how does this knowing fit in with that?
Yeah, great question. I want to share about the annual meeting, but I've got to acknowledge Doretha and others that have chimed in on the chat. Doretha says that she knows that she has the ability to achieve the goals when she does the work. Got another comment. I know that God sent me to Houston, Texas, great city, to be around like-minded people and remove me from unmotivated individuals. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of work that you get when you tap into the source, like Pagin was talking about earlier, tapping into the source. And one of the best places to go to get a refresher and to be around like-minded people, but to get a refresher around how to tap into the source around these things that are most important to you is this annual meeting. Each year we have an annual meeting. This coming year is going to be January 7th and 8th in Boca Raton, where we do just that. We gather around like-minded people. We focus on those goals that we have for the upcoming year, the accomplishments that we had for the previous year, and we just tap into the source. We tap into the energy that's going to allow you to achieve not only the goals that you've set for yourself, but the goals that you didn't know really how to articulate, because you just knew them. You just knew that that's what your opportunity was, and where do you find the energy to go after that? So that's what the annual meeting is about. I've already bought my registration this past week. I bought my airline ticket. I took care of the hotel. I'm there, right? I'm there. I hope you're going to be there too, because it'd be kind of awkward for me to be there by myself. But I'm there because of the energy and the motivation that I get coming out of that meeting. So back to you, Pagine. What's something that you're excited about as you start thinking about operating from this space of knowing as opposed to this space of thinking? Because we get caught up, right? As humans, as adults in particular, we believe we have to think our way through things, and that will get us so far because you're brilliant. Miss Ann is brilliant. We can think our way through a lot of things, but when we give up this need to think our way through and just exist in this space of knowing, what are some things that has availed itself to you?
Oh my gosh, you're pressing buttons big time just by asking that question. So, what I know, oh gosh, so I choose to be truthful in that. What I know is just in that question. I could feel my heart pounding because this is what I know is, and it requires me, just like Ann does the billionaire group. For me, it's I know that I'm speaking around the world on some glorious stages. I know that it requires me to be available, to be where I need to be, to talk about leadership in the way that needs to be talked about. I know that I provide opportunities for people to be seen, to be heard, and to be bold. And I say that, but the hard part, heart, HEART, and the hard, HARD, is that I have to stop thinking and just being and surrendering so that I can say yes, yes, yes. And I'm going to ask everybody in the comments over here, in the comments, how do you, what is something that you know that you're supposed to be doing, that you just know you're being called to it, and you declare it today? So put in the comments, I declare, I know this is where I'm being called. I declare that I will surrender and accept it. Just put it in the chat. Let's see what's going on. Cindy Blue, I want to thank you so much to share that the group is rich, and I'm grateful that I was directed this way. I love when all of this is just so powerful. And here's the other thing, Galen, you asked me about. I cannot wait till January. Could I hug you? I could be with Ann and hug you. We haven't seen each other in person. Actually, Galen and I, you and I have never seen each other in person.
Oh, that's so true.
So just so you know, we've never seen each other in person. So basically, I only know Galen from this up. So I cannot wait to hug you. And Ann, I can't wait to hug you. So that's what I'm working. Ann, what is it that you're being called to do right now?
Interestingly, you asked that question. I just put in the chat something that Emerson said. And with your permission, I would like to read this.
Do it.
It's interesting that Galen asked the question because what I mentioned earlier that I wanted to read talks about knowing. And Emerson says, the soul knows only the soul. And this is from the Oversoul. It's an essay by Emerson. He says, the soul knows only the soul. All else is idle words for her wearing. Oh, weeds. Oh, let me get my glasses checked. Those are not words. Those are weeds. He says, the soul knows only the soul. All else is idle weeds, weeds, for her wearing. Speak to the soul. This is about the soul. For to the soul, and we're still talking about the brain for those of you who are wondering, what are they talking about knowing? We're on the subject of the brain being an intangible force. Your brain. Wow. And if I may continue to read, Galen, Begin, do you mind?
Go ahead.
You sure you don't mind, right?
I don't.
Galen, do you mind?
Go for it.
This is some deep, 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 deep. And I'll see if I can take a picture and post it. But here we go. Here we go. All goes to show that the soul in man is not an organ, but animates and exercises all the organs. Is not a function like the power of memory, of calculation, of comparison, but uses these as hands and feet. Is not a faculty, but a light. Is not the intellect or the will, but the master of the intellect and the will. Is the vast background of our beings, in which they lie, an immensity not possessed, and that cannot be possessed, from within or from behind. A light shines through us upon things and makes us aware that we are nothing, but the light is all. A man is the facade of a temple, wherein all wisdom and all good abide. What we commonly call man, the eating, the drinking, the planting, the counting, man does not, as we know him, represent himself, but misrepresents himself. Him we do not respect, but the soul, whose organ it is, he is, would he let it appear through his action, would make our knees bend. When it breathes through his intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through his will, it is virtue. When it flows through his affections, it is love. And the blindness of the intellect begins when it would be something of itself. The weakness of the will begins when the individual would be something of himself. All reform, and here we go wrapping it up, all reform aims in someone particular. All reform aims in someone particular, and that's each one of you, to let the great soul have its way through us. In other words, to engage us to obey.
So, for those, this is something that is so important. This is what a great mastermind does: is bring information, insights, a message. So while you were reading that, and one of the things was coming, now I wear my hair like sticking up. Well, it was sticking up even further, as though, and tingly, and the awareness of what was coming down through me into my soul. And it was coming obviously through my soul into the being, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing. And I've been so thankful that you read that, because it just reminds us, going back to Galen, what do you know? and what do you think you know? And, hey, Shawnte, I'm so glad that you hear about the kind words. One of the things that I want to just share and bring into our people. Thank you so much for this. And, some of the people posted, Katrina read, I declared I'm supposed to be a speaker and serve others on a higher level. Yes, I am. I love women who speak. Love men who speak too, but I love women who speak. Doretha Dennis said, I declare that I will provide excellent health and wellness for seniors in my immediate area and beyond. Absolutely. And Shawnte at the Abundant Health Services says, I know that I'm here to help families exit the health pipeline to a premature death. Woo, yes. She says, I declare that I am America's health teacher. And we have our Facebook user that can't wait till they see you there, Ada Smith. She's coming in. Also, I'll help 2 million families exit the health pipeline. And, Regina wrote, Doretha, I love that I assist a 95-year-old friend in my neighborhood. And for those of you who think that you can't be healthy, girl, I am healthy, transformed my life in the last 2 years. Lost 52 pounds, on my way for another 50 pounds that are about to be lost. And I'm a vegan, and I'm no longer diabetic. I am no longer a thing. And look at me. I look so cool because of it. Galen, you were going to say something.
I was just going to, just listening to all of these intentions that were listed in the chat that you just read. And I'm going to put on my coaching hat just for a hot second. Whatever you wrote in the chat, whatever you thought about but decided not to write in the chat, whatever you know, I'm going to challenge you in the next 10 days to take, actually in the next 24 hours, I want you to take one step towards realizing this thing that you know. You don't have to explain how you know it. It doesn't have to make sense, but I want you to operate outside of your intellect. Like Mr. Emerson said, that Ms. Ann read, act outside of your intellect and just take action against this thing that you know you are here to do. And I would love for you to somehow chat to this show. Come back next week. Let us know what you were able to accomplish because you were acting outside of your intellect. The key thing about this chapter for me is actually in the subtitle. It's that the brain is not only the sending, but the receiving source of all information. We tend to know about the brain being the sender. We don't think about it being the receiving. This knowing that you have, that's your reception. That's your receiving. And Pegeen, I suspect that's why you're able to be even more brilliant today than you were last year, because you've got this extra antenna on your head now. You're receiving more information.
I am. And I am. And that's where I want to go into the I am. So I'm going to go to you, Ann, and then I'm going to you, Galen, and then I'm going to go to me, and then I'm going to go to the comments. So here's what you're going to say is, how do we contact you? How are you? And just say, I am, because you're, and whatever it is that you're going to say, Galen, and then Ann, declare it so that our producer, Brittany, can share your message. So go, Galen. I am. Go ahead.
I am the leadership strategist. So I'm just really excited to have this conversation. If you want to get from where you are to where you want to be, yes, I'm an executive coach, but that's not all. Yes, I've got 30 years in corporate America, but that's not all. I will use whatever resources I have to help you build a strategy to get from where you are to where you want to be. One of the most fun ways to get a hold of me is by pulling up any platform where you can receive podcasts, and go to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast. We talk to other amazing leaders in a multiple of industries and help them and have them help you with information on how you can get real talk that you can't find anywhere else about whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. I double dog dare you to try us just once.
Love it. And
I am the master wealth builder. Yes, I am. And I would like to encourage all of you to join us on our free Friday Think and Grow Rich accountability call. We're going to put the link here where you can join. But I also want to honor Miss S.L. Wells, Shawnte Wells. She is doing a Books in the Hood program. Books in the Hood. And Shawnte, if you can tell us how people can reach you, we would love to support you in your Books in the Hood program. If you have a website or something, if you can put it in the chat, we would love to support you. And I will definitely donate some books, copies of Think and Grow Rich for your Books in the Hood program, because I cannot think of a better gift to give a child at any age other than the book, which is the Bible, and the other book, which is the Think and Grow Rich. And you can reach me and find out a little bit more. If you're interested in connecting, you can go to your cell phone and text me at 55678. If you're interested in understanding how to connect with the brain and come up with the auto suggestion affirmation, you can text me at 55678 and we will send you the 6 keys. In the chat section, you can just put the word "and." That number again is 55678. You can text me and put the word "and" in the text section, ANN, and that number again is 55678. Back to you, Begin.
I am Peggy. Power, Peggy. Power, be feisty, be fearless, be focused, have fun. You can always find me. Just Google Pegine, Pegine, power. And if you want every single day, every other day, some of my leadership, business, confidence, motivation, words to come, you join us at Pegine Club, PEGINE.club, where you get a daily audio experience bursting with brilliance and excitement to be powerful, be you, and live an extraordinary life. That's where I'm at. Also, if you're a woman who's a woman in business speaker, just go to powerwomenworldwide.com. Most importantly, believe in yourself, be your most authentic self, and show up in the world, because we want you and need you fully and completely. I want us all to, would you just rate, we applaud Brittany, who's our producer. She always makes us look good. And just say thank you, Brittany, for making us look good. And Ann has her hand up. So yes, Ann.
No, I just want to wrap up by reminding all of our listeners, because we talked a lot about the brain, but we really didn't tell people, how do you train the brain? How do you connect with your brain? How do you focus your brain on the areas that you would desire? And I really want to encourage all of us to just go back to the entire idea of autosuggestion, whether it's your prayer, whether it's your affirmation, whatever it is that you desire. Use this principle of autosuggestion to train your brain to draw to you. Of course, you must do the work. Now, let's make sure we say that. And so, again, we talk about being a broadcast and receiving station. We've talked about a lot today, and we just really want to remind our audience to wrap up with, how do you send the message and receive the message you desire? Because everything that's coming to you, if it's not connecting with your desire, and in your self-talk, positive self-talk about your affirmation, then just, let it talk to the hand. All right. So I just wanted to share that, Pekin, because it's very important that our guests and our, also all of us, that we remember how to train the brain.
So we're going to train the brain, because I always like ending on time. It's 9 a.m. We love you and support you. Join us next week, where we again will talk about Think and Grow Rich, the Mastermind Live. Remember, subscribe, connect, share, comment, and show the love, because we love you and we believe that you are who you were destined to be. Just be it. Take care, everybody.